This section will cover the methodology of the study conducted in this article, and it was titled The Multiple Approach Method to the Study of Biliteracy, and I'm going to run through exactly what these methods were and why the researchers chose to do this. And so, to start off with, I think it's important to highlight who the participants were, and in this case, they were 12 4 and 5-year-old emergent bilingual children, 7 girls and 5 boys, whose first language was Spanish and second language was English, and who had been exposed to both languages from an early age. All of the children and their families lived in an urban setting in the U.S., in the Southwest, and were actually part of a larger cohort of children who were participated in a 3-year longitudinal study. So this is actually like a sub-study of a larger study. And that study focused on the study of literacy practices at home. So both studies went hand in hand. But this article focused on the data collected during the first year when children were in preschool. And the 12 children selected were random, and all of the literacy assessments were conducted in the classroom. And so on to the community. All of the families in this project were part of the Tucson, Arizona community, which is actually more than 30% Latino. The children live in a predominantly bilingual and bicultural neighborhood with a very strong presence of Mexican culture. The article highlighted how there are many signs and announcements that are typically printed in both Spanish and English. So, for example, the supermarket, the local library, tax offices, clothing stores. And so the children and their families were always exposed to bilingual print in their environment, not just at home. And so this is something that I pictured was going to Little Village or Pilsen or even the town of West Chicago near me, where there's a very high Hispanic population. And in addition, the families themselves participated in a lot of organized social and community events, and one of them was barbecues such as carne asadas and rodeo weekends, bilingual library time, and even religious practices like attending Spanish language catechism classes. And I thought it was really interesting how the researchers included this, or at least made note of this, because Catholicism is very predominant in the Mexican culture, and I could definitely see how children would be getting more of that bilingualism outside the classroom through these catechism classes. And so the preschool program was a public state-funded preschool that was part of an early childhood education program in the local school district. All of the children, all 12 of them, qualified for free or reduced cost school lunch, so that gives you a little bit of info about their socioeconomic status. And so although English was the language of instruction in this preschool program, the classroom teacher and teacher's aide used Spanish during social interactions and to provide clarification during instruction. And that actually turned out to be about 40% of classroom interactions, a pretty substantial chunk, which sounds reasonable. They're still in preschool. Moreover, the native language was always honored, especially when the parents volunteered in the classroom, because many of them were Spanish dominant, and the teacher invited them to use Spanish in their classroom interactions, and I thought this was wonderful. Something I wanted to bring up about the study was that one of the teachers, whom they named Miss Vasquez, not her real name, was a fluent bilingual, though non-native Spanish speaker who had lived in Mexico for more than 20 years. Although her program in the preschool was not officially bilingual and bicultural at the time of the data, she always incorporated Spanish in her instruction. And it was because she empathized with the students and their families' specific needs and really tried to support the children's native language development within like the parameters of a state-level English-only law. So she was trying to comply, but also trying to be supportive. And there was a big difference in the fall and spring semester, because they found that in the spring she started only using exclusively English for her instruction, and her reasoning for that was because, these children would move on to kindergarten next year, and they would most likely be in an English only course. So she had to start like shifting them and transitioning them to this English only kindergarten. But I just thought this little vignette of her was really, really valuable and really important. And so to assess the children's language development, they use the Peabody picture vocabulary test to basically obtain this index of their comprehension ability. And all of these reading and writing assessments were conducted at school, and through interviews of the families and surveying the community language environments, they were able to confirm the results that the Peabody Pictures vocabulary test said, and then also what the parents said regarding their child's language fluency. And it turned out that 10 out of 12 of the students had higher vocabulary scores in Spanish than in English, so that's not surprising. And it was good that their research and then the data matched. And so on to my favorite part of this section of the article was a very small section called Our Roles as Bilingual Mexican Maestras and Researchers. And the reason why I like this so much was because they really connected why in their personal experiences it's important. It's their role as teachers is important, not just for them, for the students, but for the families and the communities. And I switched some of the wording, but I think personally our role as bilingual Mexican teachers and researchers is that we can identify as immigrants to the U.S. You don't even have to be Mexican to do so, but you can. Whether it was us that migrated, our parents, our grandparents, great-grandparents, it's happened for mostly everyone in their family, except obviously Native Americans. And thus, there is a way we can identify with parents and families. There is a way we can be empathetic and compassionate. Another thing that they noted was that a lot of times what would happen is that families were aware of their advanced education as Latinos, and they knew this was an educated teacher, and many times would seek out referrals from them to services. They would, ask them for things that they just weren't sure where to seek help from. And so the teacher was kind of that go-to, and I can vouch for that because that's what my ESL teacher served as for my family. And then later on, she ended up being a family friend, which is exactly what the article said. Families begin to trust us and see us as friends of the family who are genuinely interested in learning about their day-to-day family successes and challenges. And this was just a really great way for the article to depict our role as not just teachers, but we kind of become like these role models for the families and someone that they look up to for resources. So we are. We have the potential to have a great impact inside and outside the classroom. So that is my section. Thank you for listening, and I hope you took something from this.